Wish?
Yeah, that whatever. One of the death movies.
All right. Well, everybody, I think we're live again.
MORBIUS.
Yes, live or undead. Yes, we have. I just love the inventiveness of your names. We got Mark Bius, we got Morbius, we've got Mike Crowley. Oh, wait, sorry.
Hey, but my great grandfather was Alistair.
Oh, there you go.
Wait, is that true?
No.
What happened?
No.
I was going to say that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
it explains why you're always hanging out in that bar. It's Magic Hour. All right, so we are here. We have once again assembled Earth's Mightiest Critics. If you are joining us, jumping over from the Moon Knight live stream, thank you very much. We are going to be spending the next hour or so, or possibly 10 minutes, depending on how long we can keep this thing on the rails, talking about Morbius, the new Sony Marvel joint. Not Marvel Sony. Sony Marvel. There's a very clear distinction. And I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Annie Banks of Chuckload of Comics and Movie Web in the house. We have Will Johnson of the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. We've got Mike Crowley of YPA Reviews. You'll probably agree. And Mark, the Movie Man Krawcheck, Mark Bias, of the Spoiler Room podcast and Special Mark Production. So all of that out of the way. Morbius came out, and it was either a very encouraging success, having made $39 million at the box office this weekend, or it was Marvel's worst opening ever because it only made $39 million. It's the narratives on this thing are all over the place. I posted a review, which strangely clocked in at under 3,000 words this afternoon, in mild defense of this movie, which puts me at odds with, I can't do math, but like 84% of the other critics on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'll defend it. I'm not the hugest fan of this movie, but I make the argument in the review, and we'll see what people think about it, that much like Joss Whedon's Justice League, 4 years after that, Zack Snyder was able to release his quote-unquote definitive cut of that movie. I don't think we've actually seen Morbius as imagined by Daniel Espinosa and the screenwriters who have an admittedly dodgy history in the movies, having given us such gems as the Power Rangers movie, The Last Witch Hunter, and Gods of Egypt. But I go into movies with an open mind. I like a lot of what I see here, and what I see here is potential that was absolutely butchered by people at a studio who wanted to take what should have been a 3-hour movie and get it down to an hour 45. So I open the floor to you. Who wants to jump in and hit me with a sock full of quarters for being wrong?
Well, I'm not going to hit you sock full of quarters. Actually, I think there was something in my review that I said, I don't know what happened behind the scenes of this movie. I didn't look it up, but it seems like there was some disagreements. I guess they call it creative differences. In other words, it's, the director yelling F you to another guy. And I think it's one of those things where it wasn't what they maybe envisioned, or maybe it was just a mess to begin with, and we kind of got what we got. I didn't think it was as terrible as everyone said and all that. I was like, it as like kind of like, if you want to see a movie that's like unintentionally bad but kind of funny, it's kind of see that it's fun to see it that way. Jared Leto actually was oddly my favorite part of the movie. I thought he was kind of good as Morbius. Kind of like his whole, rock persona made him come off as this unorthodox scientist who's not like the usual sort of Bruce Banner type. But yeah, I think something happened in the making of that movie did not make the movie the way it was. Is anyone going to want to see the real version?
There's
probably not now, but maybe later. But yeah, someone will say release the actual cut of the film.
I'm going to say right now, release the extended cut.
Yeah, we want the R-rated cut.
We're going to start a movement. I'm going to go on twitter.com.
The last line of my review is release the Morbius cut, because I don't know what this is. I know, Will, you're happy with the pseudo vampiric train wreck that we got here, but I want to see. I think there's a real movie in here, and I agree that the Jared Leto's performance, and this is something else I kind of talked about in my review, is the conversation leading up to Morbius, like the release of the picture, almost guaranteed that there was going to be a giant critical bandwagon that was going to be very hard to get off. whether it was the fact that it was a character that nobody knew about or cared about. It's like a vampire, and this movie's been sitting on the shelf for 2 years, much like a lot of pictures because of what has happened in the last 2 years. And Jared Leto, he's crazy, and he gives these terrible performances in these other movies. I'm like, well, yeah, but he's also given some pretty terrific performances. You know, he won an Academy Award for Dallas Buyers Club. You know, I forgot Requiem for a Dream. I forgot that he was in American Psycho, playing one of the many Paul Allens. And you know, we talked at the end of the Moon Knight live stream. Apparently, he's got some kind of a literal cult following. I was on that bandwagon 30 years ago, and I fell in love with him as Jordan Catalano in My So-Called Life, back on TV. But do you realize? Do you believe? I think he's an actual vampire. Jared Leto is 51 years old, yo.
What?
He's not.
Yes,
That's
he
what
is.
money gets you.
1971.
I had a cult that looked that good too.
But so yeah, let's talk about Mark. You always do this to me. You want to give the synopsis of Morbius?
MORBIUS.
Oh,
MORBIUS, yes.
Nice. Nice. Okay, take every vampire movie you've ever seen, take every trope out of there, and slap the superhero into that tropish film, and then take a page from the DC book. Because
you gotta have to explain that one.
Morbius plays out like one of the earlier DC films. I'll get to it in a little later. But basically, you have Morbius, a doctor who we're introduced to, who has a blood disease, and he believes the cure resides in bats. And so we get this very interesting, not trying to replicate Dracula Untold, but the same writers, and it's literally almost the same cave. I was waiting for Lannister to come out and bite him. But anyway, so we get him trying to capture vampires, and then we do flashback to their kid, to when he was a kid, and he was in an orphanage with his, or a place where sick kids get put when the parents don't want them anymore, basically, back in the day, 25 years prior to current events. And he befriends someone else with the same condition he has. And they have a friendship that grows, but Morbius proves apparently to be the smarter of the one, has some gifts, and so he goes away and abandons his friend under some false pretenses. Well, we learn later Morbius is very close to a cure for the blood disease, and he's still hooked up with his buddy. He's met up with his buddy again and his previous caretaker. And when he stumbles upon finally a cure for this disease, he discovers there's a wonderfully bad side effect to make him crave human blood. Luckily, he's got some synthetic blood to help him out, the blue versus the red. No, we're not ripping off Matrix. And we have then Morbius's friend. He discovers, oh, hey, you've been holding out on me. He, of course, five fingers the cure. He takes it as well, and now you have a vampire who is really just trying to find a way not to suck people's blood, and another vampire is saying, you know what, I've been sick for so long and mistreated, I don't care if I suck their blood as long as it makes me feel good. And we see how it comes to a head, and caught up in the middle are some innocents, some really cool cops we only spend 5 minutes with, and a love interest, not love interest, who we saw coming all the way what happens to her at the end. And then we get the last 5 minutes that end up being the most tacked on, confusing last 5 minutes, most shoehorned cameo segment I've ever seen in a film, outside of the Days of Future Past trailer that played at the end of one of the Spider-Man films as the end credits teaser.
Now, I do want to pull over and talk about that, because that was another thing that, in my review, I opened and closed with an anecdote about how I saw this movie. I skipped the critics screening, and I paid to see it Thursday night, at a multiplex. Not very many people in the theater, but is there interference coming
buzzing?
Through? I hear buzzing too.
Weird.
Buzzing.
Yeah, almost like an interference, like a static or something. Hold on 1 second. Let me try.
It's not me.
Not me. I just unplugged and plugged in, and
Oh, it's almost going away.
Okay,
Nope,
I'm gonna.
back.
No, that's odd. Well, we can still
I think it's
hear each other.
Sony stop
I think
trying
it's,
the negative press.
I think it's the most recent 30 Seconds to Mars album.
All right.
Sorry.
Not-
I'm unplugged. Does that change anything? Oh, now you just like glitched out.
you muted yourself, Ian. You're muted.
There. Okay. Now I'm back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody should mute themselves one by one. You can find out probably who it
Yeah,
is.
let's see who the
Wait,
suspect is.
who just gone?
There it
That
is.
was Annie.
Oh, so that's why you weren't invited.
I know. As the resident Romanian, I have to be here.
Yes.
Well,
I have to
let me,
defend my vampire heritage.
let me ask you this, Eddie, as a favor, and you can totally say no. Can you mute yourself when you're not talking? Awesome. Okay. Feel free to jump in at any time. It's just it sounded to me like someone was like vacuuming a very tiny room. But
See a Roomba going around. Yeah.
yes.
I
Okay,
will
so
gladly take a Roomba and like just have it bounce around my walls.
Roomba, Jamaica. Sorry. Anyway,
The little vampire wings on it.
And all the
Yikes.
winners.
Yeah.
all right. So
Actually, Mike, actually, I will.
as long as you film it and put it up on TikTok. But
Yeah.
no, all right. So I saw this in a theater, not very crowded. There was a guy sitting behind me who was, I believe, stoned off his ass, very friendly, kind of scary. But we watched this end credit sequence together, and we had like a full conversation during the end credits, unprovoked by me. But he was very excited to see the cameo. Now, I guess as long as I put this spoiler banner on, and I do want to pull over for 1 second to say to Tracy Cormier.
Hi, Tracy.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey, great. Thank you for joining us. Hope you I leave it in the chat. Did you like Morbius? Do you think are you here to see it get trashed? Because we can accommodate you either way, I'm sure. But no, as far as this end credit sequence, I have been hearing for weeks since the London screening or whatever, maybe it was only a week, that it was like the worst post-credit sequence in any Marvel movie ever. And it was so lame. And I'm like, what am I'm kind of anticipating being really upset. But it turns out the first one was Michael Keaton as his Vulture alter ego from the Spider-Verse movies showing up in a prison cell, kind of like materializing where led to believe has something to do with the No Way Home rift in space and time. And then he gets kind of like carted away. And then the next mid-credit sequence is Michael Morbius goes out to this abandoned field or something, and he's waiting. All of a sudden, Vulture swoops down, and he's like, we got this Spider-Man problem. We should team up. And then Morbius says, I think we could do some good. Now, we don't
makes
know.
No sense, but yeah.
Huh?
That just makes no sense.
Well,
personally, but
it does if you give it the same grace that we did with one of the Avengers movies. I don't remember which one it was, but it was them. It was when they had Bucky, like before Winter Soldier. They did a post-credit sequence where Bucky was kind of like, his arm, he was trapped or something, and I think Cap and Falcon were talking about it. And it took place sometime after the events or before the events of something else. It was kind of like a mysterious thing that much later we're like, oh, that's that scene. But I feel like this is a scene that is the significance is going to be revealed in a future movie, not necessarily a Morbius sequel, because I don't know if that'll happen. But I saw it as, okay, Vulture manifests in this cell. We don't know how long between that happening and then the meeting with Morbius in the field, because he has to figure out who he is and where he is, build this suit somehow in this reality, contact Michael Morbius, get him to agree to meet him in a field, and then sync up. It's not like this happened the day after he came back. This is sometime in the future, at which point, maybe Spider-Man has encountered Morbius and they've fought. There's like a whole movie in between, and this is like a building block to Sinister Six. They're just kind of doing it in a strange order. It did not bother me because there's a mystery to it. I didn't get the feeling like we're just going to put something random out there. It's like, this is a puzzle and you're going to find out the answer at some point.
No,
I
no.
feel like
The
it's a
reason why I
puzzle.
didn't,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I
You
was
want
going to say the reason why I didn't think it made any sense was because, yeah, he could build another Vulture suit. I get that, but it looks exactly like the one from Homecoming, and that was built on Chitauri technology, which was from the remnants of the Avengers battle in New York. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it's this science fiction, it's a comic book. He could build it from something else, but it did. I know you're giving a lot of credit for the mystery part, but it also seems to me like Sony's like, hey, we've got control over this character. We can pop him in, and we can show this. And it's like, don't worry about if the suit's supposed to exist or not, as it is, that kind of thing. It just, I guess I was getting to the nerdy specifics of why does he have that suit if it couldn't possibly exist in that world.
You make a good point, because it kind of reminds me of these communications, what we see that don't really align. I feel like Sony has really struggled to fully align their vision with the continuation of the MCU, and they have a lot of I say this about DCU as well, and whatever CW is trying to do to sync that up, and they have a really cool idea, a really neat concept. I feel with Morbius and Vulture coming together and trying to recreate some sort of remnant of the Sinister Six, was there any correlation between John Watts and how we wanted to end No Way Home, where we see all these other villains get sent back to their respective universes, and then you're stuck with Morbius and Vulture, and they're like, okay. And Venom, I forgot Venom is there, but you're like, okay. Even looking back at the trailer, for those who watch the trailers, we see Spider-Man painted on the wall. I saw a still of it. And Daniel Espinosa was like, I have no clue why they put that in there.
They also put a lot of Oscorp stuff in the skylines in the trailers, which did not show up in the movie either.
We'll talk about those trailers. We got to talk about the trailers specifically and separately. But what I want to say is, Will, to your point, I understand where you're coming from, but I think there is room in there, and I know I'm being very gracious to the filmmakers or whoever made that decision to put in that stinger. There is room for that to make sense, because the rift opened up in space-time. A lot of weird shit got through, so it's possible that Chitauri technology also, made its way into this reality. And if Michael Keaton's character knows what he's looking for, and he knows perhaps he has some connections, like, hey, I need some weird shit on the dark web, and maybe he found it and built it. It could just be bad writing. I don't know, but I'm saying.
Well, that's the other thing is, the reports are that they had no consultation with Kevin Feige about that scene at all. So that's what also makes me think that you're giving too much credit to them, because I really do feel it's more like, let's smash our IP that we control together more than a mystery. Because if they wanted it to make sense, just ask Kevin Feige to just give his opinion at least. But they were just like, no, we're going to film it. So
Will, you saying that they had... Now I'm hearing...
What?
Okay,
it's Sony. They want you to say something nice. Say something nice about the movie.
It was a movie. Out of all the Marvel movies, it was definitely one of them. Jared Leto, he is certainly an actor.
Well, I'm glad you at least give him that credit, because some people will
I
not.
just knowing that Kevin Feige was just like, how hard do you think you cried in the shower that night? Be honest.
Well, not at all. Like, he's wiping his tears with.
I was going to say
money.
He was wiping them with money, but
in his money shower. In his money shower.
Yeah, right. But I can't. I did when I watched Morbius, I wanted to pay attention. I did. I really did, and I think it was fine for the first 2/3 of it. I thought it was fine. I was kind of waiting for that big gotcha moment where this people just absolutely tearing to shreds. I was waiting for myself to go like, yeah, I can see why this is underperforming. I can see why it's disappointing, until what did it for me was the scene that I sent in the group chat, the one with Matt Smith, where he's just breaking it down. Yeah. Can you get up for us?
That was like their Sam
I don't think you want.
We can't have nudity on YouTube, Mark. Don't stand up.
2008 Abercrombie throwback commercial am I watching? And that's where I decided to clock out mentally, because I looked at that, and Matt Smith would be so much more powerful if they just filled in his eyebrows a little bit. Just a little bit. Like, I've been saying this since the Doctor Who days. If he just touched it up, tiny bit.
Keep Matt Smith's name out your fucking mouth. Sorry. Anyhow.
But it was that scene where I was like, oh no.
No, you mentioned a good point. I didn't hate it. Okay, I didn't. I'm watching it and I was like, the way some people of the pre-release reviews, and yeah, we say DC shield, but again, I like all the films, but this did feel like either like an early DC film or even an early Marvel approach to a film,
Marvel,
like a 90s, like just before Blade or even after Blade, they're trying to find out their formula and get their footing. This film, for me, that's the way it felt, the way it was edited to put it together, the way the dialogue even was. All of this screamed more of like, if this was a superhero film that came out like in the 90s when they were still trying to feel their way, like when we talked about Blade or, Turtles and that, where they're still trying to figure out how to do this genre, I might have got into the film a little bit more. But we have to put it in context that we are not there. Not only Marvel, but DC, and just the cinematic approach to superhero films has changed and evolved so much. To get a film like this now was a bit surprising. And I'm with you, Ian. I think there's a really solid film that I could enjoy in here. This really felt hacked up.
And I think, but to Mark, to your point, because that was one of the annoying criticism I heard, it's like, oh, it feels like an early 2000s comic book movie. I started hearing that over and over and over again. That just becomes critics' talking points. But I do agree that there is that element there. But I think, to your point, it comes back to editing, because I feel like they had possibly a 3-hour movie in here that someone was like, you have to make it an hour 45, which is impossible unless you hack it down to its base elements where it does feel just like beat comic book movie. Because Annie, to your point, it was about the time when Matt Smith's character turns, becomes a vampire and then does his brief, like, now I've got powers, I'm going to go to the bar and impress these girls and all this other stuff. And then it just becomes them like bamfing all over the city. I don't know when vampire bats got the ability to like have wispy, colorful smoke like coming out of them as they're like slow motion teleporting all over the place. But whatever. But all of the clever story stuff goes out the window. Now, with was it Martine, that the doctor that was sort of his colleague and pseudo love interest? Mark, you had said I think that was telegraphed. I did not see that coming because I didn't predict them going that dumb with it, because because it's so disjointed, those final moments. Michael Morbius goes from, I've got to stop Milo, his real name is Lucian, but he calls him Milo, which is, I think, is a really kind of a touching and tragic backstory as to the history of that name.
So why did they advertise him as Loxia's crown as Hunger?
Who did?
I kept seeing, like, I saw his Matt Smith listed as Loxia's crown.
I don't know.
Hunger.
Well,
nobody knows
that's
what they're
another
doing.
part of my confusion with this whole thing.
Well, and that's I'd seen there's an article famously, Matt Smith doesn't understand his Marvel character, and I think it does come because I did recognize that name from that article. But if you look at IMDb, he's just listed as Milo, which is very strange. But the whole point is, at the end of this movie, Morbius goes from I've got to take this guy out, and then I'm going to kill myself because I'm a monster. And then he takes Milo out, and then Martine is dead, we think. And then he's like, okay, I am the knight. I'm going to go on and do whatever. Why did he decide to not kill himself? What did I miss? And then the montage-y kind of ending where Martine just opens her eyes and they're red. Like, this movie, there's something else here. They did the best they could with it, but it's still kind of an irredeemable mess.
I agree, because especially with Milo, because he does go through this kaleidoscopic emotional thing. Like, there was actually that scene in the bar was actually pretty good. Yeah, because I liked it because he actually controls himself, at least for a moment, and he's like, I'm not going to kill these guys in the bar, and he waits and broods and kills the guys later.
The Lost Boys. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought that was a better, because before that, though, there's a scene before that in the wretched hallway of 2000 horrors, where the hallway lights are going on. He just mercilessly murders this nurse. And then also the dance after that. It's like wholesale murderer, struggling with murder, wholesale murderer. Like and it's all mixed up. It's almost like they misplaced the scenes, like in the editing bay or something.
Yes.
Not to mention, like, Morbius kills a ton of people, and like all his friends are like, "Oh, it's okay. We know you can't help it. We're here to help you." And I'm just like, really?
Well, that was maybe I've watched too many, because I'm a huge horror fan. Maybe I've watched too many horror films, but I didn't buy any minute, and maybe it is part as well to the editing and some of the direction in this film. I didn't buy 1 minute that was Morbius who killed her in the hallway. There was nothing. There was nothing set up. There was no like little transformation twitch or something from him at all. We just cut to her suddenly coming out of the hallway, and suddenly there's a vampire with the flashy lights, and she gets bit. And then we've got Morbius who wakes up with his timer in the young woman's the girl's room, and I'm like, okay. And then it was like trying to play off like, oh, he killed the nurse. I'm like, no, he did it. That was Matt. It's like, just like Matt Smith's character, everything. And I think that was part of the thing is someone who edited this or producers that stuck their fingers in this watched every vampire film and says, we got to really follow this formula of vampire films, and we don't need this or this. You've got to put this in. So they think that Morbius. I mean, there was nothing. Everything for me, at least, was telegraphed, and it was like nothing where it was supposed to be a surprise. I'm like,
it was, but again, I feel like that was based on some kind of a mandate. Like you have to make a movie, but you can't make a movie like we can't tell anything like the story we want to tell in 3 hours, an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah. So let's go back. We'll look at the greatest hits and kind of do that.
Well, okay, what was this really? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say not benefit, but to support Ian's take on this. And I never say that superhero films or comic book films are just for children. I hate that viewpoint, my Marvel soapbox. But I will say for this film, it did work with children because there were a bunch of children in my audience, and it was wonderful to watch the film with all these children in the audience because they were shouting out the editing points during the movie. Like my favorite part was there's the scene with the ball where Morbius is throwing the ball and then using his bat tingle to catch it. And as soon as he catches the ball, this kid in the front row goes, "Instincts!" Just yelled out "instincts."
Oh my god!
And I was like, "This movie works for this kid."
He's a little Jedi.
Yeah, no, it was like and literally they were doing stuff like, "Oh yeah, it's him." Like it was very like, I'm not trying to be insulting, but I mean this is like an 8-year-old kid, and so the way it is edited from probably a rated R thing that was 3 hours long to an hour and 45 minutes was to the benefit of trying to grab a broader audience, but instead it just kind of grabbed the kids, I guess.
Well, it's like a blood-sucking vampire is kind of an R-rated thing, and you could tell like they really wanted gore and blah 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 blah, and they just couldn't put it in there because you need to make it PG-13. You need to make that money back.
There was
and
a cool,
kids, like
there was a cool blood splatter on the camera once, which I thought was pretty cool. But other than that,
well, when Jared Harris's character, and Jared Harris I thought was really good in this, and he felt like the biggest victim of the edit because you're right, he's sort of the guy who runs this home for ill children in Greece at the beginning of the movie, and then later on he's sort of Alfred to Milo's Bruce Wayne, even though Milo isn't out there solving crime. He's like involved in like really shady business deals. We don't quite understand what his deal is, except he's got an obscene amount of money and very little conscience. But then Jared Harris is just like hanging around trying to be the voice of reason on his shoulder, and then he gets taken out. When he gets killed, it's just like the 3 slashes across the blue button down shirt, and you're like, no. And part of this again is because Mark and I talked about Blade last night, an honest to God, late 90s R-rated vampire movie where you can have gore and really go for it. That's what this movie needed, and I feel like it had it at some point, at least in concept.
And I think this film would have done better had they started out right away wanting to do it as a PG-13 film rather than them doing an R film and cut it down to PG-13, because in my review I said that this film really wanted to be R. When you're watching this version in theater, I mean, I like more mature comic book films. Yeah, we talked about Blade. Blade's a prime example. There's a reason why a lot of people bring it up. That's how you do an R-rated comic book film, is the first Blade, in all honesty. It's still not exactly the most deep like some other Marvel films, but that's how you do, you know, the relationships are more mature, the kills and everything have more weight because they're more mature. And this film, you can just so tell that it was either R or it so wanted to be R, that it takes away from trying to cut that down, because you take away those moments that are supposed to be longer, the deaths that are supposed to be a little bit longer or more brutal. One of my favorite scenes actually in this has nothing to do with the deaths, and it's where why I wasn't as critical as a lot of people probably have been with the film. I was just 2 stars with it, but because there's moments that are wonderful, like the scene on the park bench with Morbius and with Milo, where they're talking about it, and Milo's asking about the cure, and Morbius is like, well, there's really a price for you. But it's a quiet scene. It's them two just acting. I loved that scene in this film. I'm like, I wanted more of those moments in here, and you don't really get them. It is a fast food cut of something that's supposed to be a 3-course meal.
I just wanted to sidebar real quick about Jared Harris. This is the first time I thought he was his dad. Like, there were parts of the movie where I was like, holy shit, that's Richard Harris. Like, I was like, that was amazing. he had that wispy voice, like the kind of wispy old voice, and he looked just like him. And I was like, oh, wow, I can see the resemblance now. Like, it made sense. Sorry, that was a little sidebar. But I remember watching that in the theater, and I was like, man, that really feels more like Richard Harris than Jared Harris.
I remember I kept trying to pinpoint who it was. I'm like, oh, he's in Chernobyl. Which really
is this also Sony's way of beating Marvel to the, hey, we've got the XMen Punch? Because early on, when they're that school in Greece, when Morbius and Milo get separated, it's because Jared Harris's character says, Morbius, we're going to send you to this school for gifted children in New York. I'm like, shit.
My first thought, that was my first thought. I was like, oh, I got to bring that up on the live stream.
Now that you're bringing it up, I remember
what happened if we did see something X-Men-esque, even the slightest related.
Instant 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, here's the problem.
Like, if we had, if there was an alternative outcome to this, where we have Milo somehow going up to Xavier's school, and you see the plaque, that worn black, that brass, very just kind of greened out thing, that you have the X-Men logo in the middle, and it just cuts. Do you think that would have influenced a critical response?
Maybe more a fan response. I don't know about critical, but one thing I'm concerned about with these Marvel films is that now that we have something like Moon Knight and Morbius, and they're not connecting to everything, the stuff that isn't connecting is kind of disinteresting us, right? Because we want to see the big Johnny Carson, carpet reveal or whatever to each new guest, to each thing that connects.
Maybe we're gonna have to explain who Johnny Carson is to Annie.
I'm going to challenge you on that, Mike, because I have seen so many of these big reveals, and I have grown up watching these big reveals and anticipating them. I think it's nice to see something disconnected and something original. Like, we see, all of these characters in one shape or form. Oh, Petty is back. Hi, Petty. They're going to be rehashed in one shape or form or another, especially with Multiverse of Madness on the horizon. And there's like 18 predicted deaths, or like 1,000 different variants. I know Sam Raimi just announced that there's going to be Wanda variants, that the Maximoff twins are going to be in this. Like, I want to see something new. I don't need to see. And I have the same issue with, like, whatever the DCU is doing. This is the 3rd Joker and the 5th Batman that we've seen in the last 10 years or whatever. I think that if we keep allowing ourselves to pedal in circles and walk over the footprints that have been placed in front of us, that we're not trailblazing anything new.
Right, because
here's something new with Morbius, too. We did get that, just differently.
Yeah. Because the thing is, I think even Marvel is aware, like, yeah, we can't just rely on revealing the things that everybody loves and, giving the nostalgia popcorn with, like, all the 3 Spider-Man and the billboards when you're driving down the highway or whatever.
But we just got that.
Exactly. So, yeah,
and it
but
made,
the
and it
thing
made
is
$2
that
billion.
Yeah, well, the thing is, though,
1.9.
Yeah, it did, and that's why they had the multiverse. Like, I was joking with a fellow critic at a screening earlier that, like, the multiverse is sort of like the new time travel sort of cheat code for writers, where, you'd have to go back in time to fix it. So, like, I know at one point I was worried they were going to do that with the new Star Wars. Like, oh, they're going to go back in time and, like, maybe yank the Emperor before he, like, goes into the, before Darth Vader tosses him down the Death Star or whatever. But the problem
is... Somehow he returned.
Yeah, somehow
Palpatine
returned.
That somehow he did.
Oh, yeah. I know the line well.
Now,
and
imagine that line with Oscar Isaac's English accent.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I just hope that we don't have to rely on everything calling back to other films to kind of like hold our attention, like someone shining like a dangly thing in front of a child. The way they're handling it is fine, but yeah, so far something I like about DC, I will say, is that they always sort of they go beyond the genre that they're covering, right? Like,
Mark, let me see your other hand. All right,
because like Marvel's great, but it's kind of the same, right? Even Moon Knight's kind of the same. Morbius is Sony going, we don't know what we're doing, and that's why they bring in Marvel to fix it. But yeah, I'm trying to find a character now that's not connected to other characters that I'm really grounded and care about, and I think it's just a work in progress right now. And I think Morbius is part of that work in progress.
Oh, sorry, I was in a fugue state there for a minute.
Nice. I think like a lot of this stuff is, particularly with the case of Morbius and even the first Venom, it's all like training wheel stuff. Like, we don't know if this is going to go anywhere. We don't connect it really to anything until it's proven out, because we could just as easily pocket it and say, well, that never really happened.
Yeah, it's like the MCU when they first started out. It wasn't so great. Like, if you remember, not Hulk, which I think is kind of underrated.
No, Howard the Duck was the first MCU film. So there you go.
That's true.
Is it really?
It is.
Yeah.
No, it's
oh
not.
my God.
That is my argument, and I will die on that hill.
So do you think in the multiverse we'll see like Howard the Duck CG with Howard the Duck, with duck boobs in 1980s?
I would pay tickets to every show if it showed both the CGI Howard the Duck and regular.
Would that officially turn you into a Marvel shill, Mark?
No.
The Markful shill?
No, it will take it'll they can have my money though for that.
I don't buy that argument that Marvel's just doing the same thing over and over again, because even this last calendar year, they've come out with a bunch of things that they've come up with some that have connections to the past, but they have actually released a number of things that either have very small connections or no connections at all. I mean, they're saying right now that Moon Knight will not have any major MCU connections. The Eternals did not have a lot of major MCU connections. Shang-Chi, which is something that I was talking about in the last one. My dad is not a Marvel guy, and he loved that movie. That's a very origin story. I mean, sure, Wong's in it and stuff, but, I think there's been a lot of stuff that has not been. I think they're still trying different things. Now, they're not doing it, like you said, with DC, where they try to literally change the genre of it, but I still think they're taking swings at trying different things, and even just the Disney Plus format alone is a different swing. It's a different form of storytelling. So,
it couldn't have come at a better time for them, for them to really just kind of like go in the playground and play with their toys and see, which ones in terms of story, which tools work the best for the audience,
Yeah, I mean, I think out of Marvel's Phase 4 is the most interesting phase out of all of them, I think, because you've got movies and television, and as Will mentioned, you're branching out into, different kind of experimental features, experimental TV shows. Not all of them work as well as, they could potentially, but, I'd rather this than sit through Marvel Phase 3 again. But I do want to sift through some comments because we're a little behind here. Tracy comes back with, I'm here to see it get trashed. LOL, but open to good reviews too.
All right, Tracy.
So hopefully we're giving you a good mix, Tracy.
Tracy was on our Blade podcast last night. So
we gotta
Oh,
invite
that was
Tracy
Tracy.
to
She was
Galway.
hilarious.
yeah,
She was
Awesome.
funny, man. She had some great one-liners,
Tracy,
man.
Tracy rocked it. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see some crossover here, and not just Will. He barely counts. No, Will and Mike, you showed up for a little bit too. This is great. All right, so Petty says, a question for Mark for when today's live theme is over. What is your opinion on the pre-fusion purge at Warner by Discovery? Will be good or bad for the future of DC movies? Sorry for off topic. No, I don't think it's necessarily off topic because we are talking about the way the studios think about and make these movies. So go for it.
I think we're waiting and seeing because it's too early to tell what the plan might be for this. I mean, it's still kind of in its infancy. It's similar to what we saw with Disney acquiring Fox, where for a few months it was rather quiet to where everybody was like, what is going to happen with the R-rated properties? What's going to happen with the Fox? You know, does this mean the Alien Queen is now a Disney princess? You know, stuff like that. But it was an enigma for a lot of fans for quite some time because there was no outline, hey, we're picking this up and this is what we're going to do with the property. It wasn't until months later when Disney came up with the very awkward name for 20th Century Studios, which I still can't get over to the date. It's just weird seeing that, you know, so not to be a cop-out answer, we have to wait and see. I think it might be good. The thing is, these two if you told me Discovery Plus and HBO, you know, Warner Brothers are going to merge, I was like, what? You know, because those are the two most odd coupling. And it could be interesting to have fresh new ideas coming into it. And maybe, and we've seen some moves already to where the one executive who was really against the Snyderverse is gone. So you're going to probably see more advances, but as far as is it going to be good for Warner Brothers, it's still kind of that feeling out period to wait and hear what maybe their vision is for it. Because and I'm sure Marvel, in all honesty, Marvel and Disney are keeping an eye out too, because if they suddenly get an influx of, say, new blood, talented new blood for their superhero properties specifically, especially, you know, and their plan for streaming, I'm sure Marvel's just kind of keeping an watchful eye. I mean, they're still kings, but at the same time, they're like, a king can be dethroned at any time by something they don't see coming. So, you know, it is interesting. I don't think Marvel's like afraid, but it's we've got to wait and see yet to what's going to play out and who gets axed and who doesn't from Warner Brothers.
I do know that they're going to get a lot of new followers because I've been following some of the stuff on Twitter, because you know Twitter, the realm of positivity and but apparently one of the phrases that the Snyder people are using in regards to this Discovery thing is like a storm is coming or something, and I'm pretty sure that's what the Q people say too.
Is that what Ezra Miller says in the bar before they walk in?
Storm is coming. Smack.
Right before he chokes someone out or tries to, but like, it's just too weak.
So I am looking forward to the mixture of Q and Snyder Bros together.
I'm not.
Discovery spelled Q. No. I'm here's the thing, Annie. This is the potential for something that we didn't know that we needed in our lives, but we're going to be so happy when it comes to fruition. Think of a remake of Suicide Squad with the cast of 90 Day Fiancé.
Oh my God.
With Big Ed as the Joker or the Penguin.
I would love to. Would it be okay? Would Liz be his Harley Quinn? What would it be? Coyote?
Now I can't not see it. I can totally see her in a Harley Quinn outfit.
What?
Okay, we're gonna have to take a sidebar on this. 90 Day Fiancé it's perfect.
Is that a reality show or something?
It is
like
start
crack.
off. It started off as a reality show.
Crack, yeah.
It is much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It has spawned about a little under 10 variation shows. I'm not even kidding.
Wow.
I think they just did a new season of 90 Days the the other way. They're gonna have the tell-all for that soon.
They have the diary show. We're not. We could spend all night
The
talking about
single
that,
life.
but we.
They have the single life. That's what I'm thinking of.
I think it's
Yes.
like a whole
I'd
other
rather,
episode.
I'd rather watch DC movies.
Look,
Wow,
don't
that
knock
is a statement. Then that is a statement.
Don't knock it till you try it. I actually
The cool thing
got
about
for
opinions is that anyone can have them, but they're not always true.
all right. Can you see this, Annie?
I can't. Is
Opinions
that a
are-
Big Ed
never mind.
sticker?
That's a Big Ed sticker.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I got a Big Ed mug too. Anyway,
He's engaged to Liz.
we'll have to have a separate live stream
Yeah,
about 90 Day
Which
Fiance.
I
Seriously,
still struggle to grasp completely. We have to do one of these as like we're gonna recruit you. The three of you.
90,000 day live stream. Okay, so
90,000
back to the
leagues
comments.
under the sea.
This movie's
With
plot
Big Ed
is
is the
much like a
submarine.
vampire.
All right, so Luke Nukem.
Time.
Everyone check out Luke Nukem movie reviews.
Luke
Yeah,
Nukem.
he's got a great channel where he does these
Hail to the king.
video essay movie reviews. Great stuff. This movie's plot is much like a vampire. It manages to bite and suck at the same time. Yes, I do not disagree with you, but I think there is a better movie in there somewhere.
There's how many sucking puns are we gonna get through with Morbius?
Well, as I was telling, so just so you guys know, my podcast co-host, Don Shanahan,
Who was
He
not
was-
here, by the way.
he's not here. He said to me in private that he was going to be like Switzerland in this whole Morbius debate. He's going to be very neutral and regardless of whether it's a good movie or a bad movie. But then I did tell him some of the dialogue from this film. I believe it was, I'm hungry, and you won't like me when I'm hungry.
Oh
And-
Jesus!
And,
I
that, and,
remember
that's,
that.
and
now.
that is where Don decided, you know what, fuck Switzerland. I hate this movie. And he hasn't even seen it yet. So, I just want to make sure you guys know that there's plenty of suck puns, but also lots of really
It's in my
good
headline for my review.
Yeah,
The word suck is it's in my headline.
I do know you want to get to the comments, but I will say if there was any prime example of how this film has been cut up, and I have to take it as it is, but I do see exactly what Ian's talking about, and it's ran through my head through the whole film. The scene in the trailer is Jared Leto's Morbius goes, "I am Venom," and then the guy gets really scared. He goes, "No, I'm just kidding," and has the guy run. I liked that scene in the trailer. They cut out the part of "No, I am just kidding" in the movie. He just says, "I am Venom," and the guy goes running. And that, when I saw that, I'm like, that's a key scene. Another one is where we got Toombs, who actually addresses Morbius, which means Morbius there, which while you're watching the movie, I'm waiting for Toombs to show up, especially when the cops are on Morbius ready to arrest him, I'm like, okay, this is where we're going to get the crossing of these two characters is they're bringing in Morbius for questioning, and Toombs ends up coming out of the car or whatnot and says, "Hey, Morbius, I've heard of you," or whatever. That was a great dialogue. Or just, "Hey, Morbius," but I mean, just
Morbius.
Hey!
Hey-oh.
No House of Gucci references. No,
but you know what I'm saying is the way it was cut in the trailer.
Yeah,
and what we-
buddy, what do you mean to
Hey,
do?
I'm a Gucci. I'm a brother of the Gucci. I don't know.
They tried
All
to
right.
suck blood from my bald head.
I'm going to evict all of you from this House of Gucci. Now, listen, Mark, after we finish these comments, because we are going to wind down, I do want to talk about, because we promised the trailer, but you bring up some excellent points that I also want to revisit. But let's get back to Petty says, "I'm fascinated by Annie's comments. Come on, girl power." Smiley emoticon, is that what?
Yes,
What
that'd be
do
a
they call
smiley.
the typed out ones?
They call it
What are
a
those?
face.
Emoji.
Yeah, that's still an emoji.
No, the emoji is like the
Emoji?
cartoon face. I think that's an emoticon.
No, it's an early. Well,
Is that like a transformer?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
They
it's
show
emoticon.
love.
Transgender nowadays.
There you
What
go.
did we call the commenter there? What do you, Petty? Is that what we called her? Is that,
Yes.
did I say it right? Okay. If you want more Annie Banks girl power, tune in this Friday for Cinephile Hissy Fit. Annie is our special guest to talk about Bo Burnham's Inside.
Oh,
So-
nice.
Which
So that was-
just
Is that
won.
like it's like a comedian colonoscopy? Sorry. What?
Sorry, that was my plug. I apologize, but I had to do it.
Thank you. Yeah,
That
no,
works with my
which-
colonoscopy joke too. Go ahead. What?
No, I was gonna say it
Like
just
you
won
want Bo
2 awards.
Burnham? I don't
No,
even
the
want to
plug.
How that connects?
The
Oh,
plug.
this all sounds so wrong.
Remember last week when we talked about feet a lot? That was cool.
Yeah, I do too. Who wants to buy my OnlyFans?
I forgot about that. Never mind.
All right. So,
Well, now we all know.
all right. So now we got, but yes, I agree. Annie, you're awesome, and Petty agrees. Luke Nukem back again. Sony is so focused on making a Sinister Six film since the release of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and how it's being executed so far has been appalling and egregiously written. I agree, but I feel like they have a one-track mind of wanting to make a Sinister Six, but I don't think it's going to have anything to do with those Amazing Spider-Man movies. It's kind of like how Kevin Smith was talking about that one producer when he was working on the Death of Superman movie who was obsessed with getting the giant mechanical spider in every every movie. Was it Peters?
Yeah.
Of Cooper Peters?
In
Licorice Pizza.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, not the real John Peters.
Bradley Cooper plays him,
John
and he's
Peters.
like threatens
Oh,
to
okay.
pick Philip Seymour Hoffman or Cooper Hoffman's ass and stuff like that.
He's the
My
best.
last
one.
name is Streisand. Are you messing with me? Of course it is. I'm messing.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Right.
Yes, you did. It's okay.
We all got to get our spots in.
No, talking about the trailer though. That's why I don't watch these trailers.
Yeah,
Well,
I
we'll
haven't
get to
seen
that
a
in just-
single trailer. I was like, this is
Forget-
a trailer.
We'll
I'm
get
like,
there.
This
Well,
is why I'm gonna say that, and then I'm gonna let the comments.
Well, I'm going to recommend, after we talk about the trailer stuff, we'll do that briefly. I recommend going and watching the trailers for this just to see. That's where my theory of the better, longer movie comes into play. But okay, so Petty also says, thank you very much, Mark, for the answer. You are the best. Yes. Wait, I thought Annie was the best. Are you trying to pit us against each other?
No,
Mark and I
we
are
are-
gonna fight right after this live stream.
she's
well,
gonna
what do you mean
win.
right after? I'm not going to stop recording on that.
Mark and I are gonna keep going, and this live stream is gonna keep going. and we're
There we
gonna
go.
All right. So Luke Nukem also says the reason why they cut the "I'm just kidding" on Morbius was probably because if he were to expose his identity to this one random guy, meanwhile Morbius's face is already on the news. Well, someone else brought this up also. Like when Morbius is a fugitive, there is that scene between he and Martine. I didn't mean to rhyme there. Where they're just in a coffee shop, and he's just like hanging out, hoodies down. He's just like, yeah, let's talk about stuff. So it doesn't make any sense. All right. So briefly on the trailers, there, as Mark mentioned, there's the I Am Morbius scene. There's the bit with Michael Keaton. There's also the bit where Tyrese Gibson, he's like talking into his microphone or his communicator wristwatch or something like, this isn't you, you've got to stop this thing or whatever. That is like the climax of this movie is just Morbius and Milo beating the crap out of each other in these random, generic locations. And then you see the feds come in because they're always 4 steps behind this movie. But I'm like, oh, that's right. There was supposed to be a whole bit where Morbius was communicating with the FBI for some reason. But it just felt like an entire plot line was cut out of this film. Not to mention the background imagery that we were talking about, like Oscorp and the Spider-Man poster. They did, whether or not they put all that stuff in and just post for the trailer or what. But yeah, we get to see bits of this movie. And I watch trailers, not all the time, but I do. And that's kind of on me because I'm watching the movie like, wait, where's this bit? Where's this bit? What happened over here? I'm having to fill in a lot of gaps, which normally I'm going to take a movie down several notches for. But I saw enough promising stuff in the things that they did including, I think one of the key decisions was in the trailer, we do see Michael Morbius in that tux kind of hobbling across the stage at the Nobel Prize ceremony. In the movie, we just see him up on the stage sitting down talking, I think, to Jared Harris about you're nervous or whatever. And then he kind of they announce him or something. I don't even know if they announce him, but we cut at that point before he gets to the stage and makes a speech back to the laboratory. And there's some kind of a news thing about how he turned down the Nobel Prize money or made some kind of a big speech that shook everybody up. I want to see that speech, especially because it seems kind of important to things that happen later on.
Yeah, but then you don't get the funny stinger of, they imply he gives his speech, and then, no, you find out, no, he actually I could just see the producers or whatnot when whoever cut this, or they were probably sitting in the ear of the editor going, no, cut this bit out. It'll be great. They won't know what he said at the, and then we'll spring it on him. And it'll be so funny or so cool that, we find out he didn't get the piece, rejected the piece,
Now, is this the same Tyrese Gibson that reposted the April Fool's Day picture of Martin Scorsese
Oh,
giving
God.
fake high
Yeah.
praise.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Man.
Is there any?
That could be the trailer for the movie, and that would let me go.
Is there
That'll
any,
be the reward you quote.
That will be the reward I deserve.
I was going to ask, is there any Star Trek fans in the
Yes.
panel right
Yes.
now? Okay. All right. So, Annie, I only think you were like 3 years old, but when Star Trek Nemesis came out, you guys remember that?
It was Tom Hardy's big gig.
Yeah,
I
that
was
was Tom
3
Hardy's.
years old. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no, okay, but no, I remember because I'm a Star Trek junkie. I watched it anyway, just like with Marvel. I'll watch
Same.
it even if it's bad. I remember when the special edition DVD came out for that. They put all the deleted scenes on there, and I don't know anything about technology, but I remember I wanted to put those in because it was simply astounding that Paramount literally took out anything that gave depth to the story or the characters. Like there were these little moments, probably like Ian's talking about with Morbius, where maybe he gives this speech, it makes us maybe connect to the character more, or give us a little bit more of who he is as an identity. This gave me Nemesis vibes in terms of, I totally agree with Ian. I feel so much on the cutting room floor here that would flesh this thing out. Now, I'm not saying it would be the greatest superhero film ever, but I just feel like the acting is too good from everybody involved to create something so lackluster.
There's that word again. Will.
What did I say?
Lackluster.
I'm with
yeah.
Will. One of the positives I gave in this film was that it felt like the actors were acting the shit out of what they were given, which wasn't much. That's the way it felt. It felt like they had a whole bunch of talented folks and they gave them the script and they're like, all right, we're going to be in a Marvel property and this is going to be great and super. And they look at it and going, is there more to my character than this? And they go, well, no, that's all we got. And they're like, okay, fine, I'll work with it. And it felt like a lot of these actors, the roles in this film were making the most of it. I actually enjoyed the boat scene, like the first time when we get Morbius. I actually liked how that was handled and everything. I'm like, awesome, cool, and then like I said, the park bench scene too. So there are parts in here, and even the dancing scene with Matt Smith. Okay,
I liked it. I thought it was
I found it humorous. But it was fitting for his character, and you could tell Matt Smith was really trying to make something out of a villain who really got chopped up, either in pages or what. He's really trying to make this guy seem like a villain, like a guy you can really hate. And it seemed like the writing was fighting him for it every step of the way.
But also like the fact that he hasn't been able to walk his entire life. Like,
right.
I would probably do the same thing too. I'd probably be
exactly
getting jiggy with it all over the place because I'm like, I never knew I could do this. Like, I can moonwalk now and all kinds of shit. So,
well, didn't they have to wheel Jared Leto from room to room? Like, he hobbled. He demanded he have the crutch at first.
Yeah, and then it took too long.
They delayed the film so long when they were actually working on it that they gave a wheelchair. But the thing is that with this heavy delay, the film has been delayed for a significant amount of time.
21 months.
21 months. In that period of 21 months, what has stopped you from going back and saying, okay, here's what we have. Here's what we could work with. We have this time to emphasize on it and really supplement and make it work. And I think I was fine with the performance from Jared Leto. I thought it was fine. I liked the bits of humor. I liked him not taking himself too seriously. I liked this very sympathetic anti-hero that we see. And I think if you could elaborate that so much more and draw that out past the hour 45, push it to 2 hours, push it to, 2.5, 2:15, see what you can do, and then go with it. You have that time. There's significant drawbacks to the cinematic industry. There's also ways of this pandemic being able to help it. Mm-hmm. This is one of those instances where you go, cool, we have this time. People know it's going to be delayed. Nobody is absolutely heartbroken and torn up about this. What was that like? What was that? What was the rush to just, okay, get it out here? The first, it's going to be there, and it's going to be there on April 1st. And it's, you guys waited for 21 months, and here it is. Like, there was so much time and effort. What were, unless everyone else was booked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I mean, it might have come down to budget. If they had a cut of the film, they're like, okay, this is just going to sit and, it's going to come out because we don't know how Venom 2 is going to do. Because it's, Venom 1, they could have been like, Venom 1 was a fluke. We're making a sequel because we kind of have to try and get a bit more money. And it was a huge movie again. And then Spider-Man No Way Home becomes a $2 billion movie. But by this point, it's too late to go back and restore Morbius because they've got a release date and they probably have to spend more money to dust things off and bring people back to do things. I mean, I understand, but it does kind of hobble the movie's prospects because we get what we get.
I want to say that I'm wondering if it's just the opposite effect. I'm wondering because when did they announce the runtime? It wasn't until recently when it was released that they gave the runtime, right? I mean, when it was first going to be released, they didn't give us a runtime. It was going to be released and then it was delayed because of COVID and everything. And it was just, I'm actually wondering if they played with this movie too much while they were waiting for it to be released because it is digital. You can do a lot of editing. I'm wondering if they went back to it, looking at over the 21 months, how some other superhero films were doing, or maybe not so well doing. I mean, Black Widow underperformed. There was some criticism with Black Widow of how it played out. I'm wondering if maybe producers or whatnot got in there and go, maybe we could tweak it a little bit more because this isn't working for this film, or this film didn't do quite as good. So I'm wondering if they had actually a solid, longer, more mature property, but they got nervous and they went ahead and started playing with it because, hey, we got nothing else to do for like.
Because
I think that's a viable option too. Yeah.
Because wasn't there a set date for a while, like January, and then they removed it again to April?
Yeah.
So there's like 3 months in between there too, which obviously coincides. Because if it was January release, and I might be incorrect about this, so don't quote me, but if it's January and you've still got Spider-Man in theaters right now, I can totally see it being like, all right, let's push it a few more months. Maybe we'll throw a cameo in there. We'll do something, mess around with it. I don't know.
I don't know if they would be messing around with it in that time period. I would feel like I would think that the moving it would have more to do with competition because you're right. Spider-Man No Way Home is still playing. You don't want to step on your own kind of brand. And then in March, like everybody got the hell out of Batman's way. And they would have been aware of that coming out in the anticipation for it. So, I mean, who knows? Well, we got a couple more comments here. I want to let's see. Luke is back. Can we just talk about how awful Tyrese Gibson was as this FBI agent? I can't say he was awful because I think he was another victim of whatever the hell this movie was trying to do. Like he just kind of popped in and out.
His partner
Al Madrigal.
Not funny at all. Like I was like, I see what he's trying to do, but I was just sitting there like, oh, this is what you're going. Oh, this is the humor. Okay. Fine.
Where I was really hoping to go with Tyrese Gibson because I liked him in this role, but the only reason I liked him in this role is because my mind kept putting it going, okay, when's the shoe going to drop? And we find out he's not actually an FBI agent, but whatever. I'm not versed in Marvel. I do apologize. I'm sure the Marvel shill would know, but a group similar, maybe he was, SHIELD or something that was aware of other beings and such, such as him, like vampire, like monsters type stuff, because there's a story with this character. He's got a cut along
the scar on his neck. Yeah.
There's a scar on his neck. He knows about
his arm. His arm was saved by the blood.
The blood.
The
right.
fake blood.
He's
Mark,
got
you make a good point. I really like where you're going with this. Is this because I know Tyrese Gibson was once almost cast as Luke Cage in the early 2000s. That would have given him, I was just kind of looking at some quick facts about the movie that, like they wanted to use the prosthetics for the vampirism. Leto said, no, let's do CG.
Yes.
But like with Gibson, if he was like Luke Cage or someone in affiliation to one of these B-list, C-list teams, if you had pull in Defenders, if you pull in it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you pull in Midnight, if you had him as Blade and pulled in Midnight Sun.
Alpha Flight. Sorry.
Blue Marvel.
But I mean, it felt like there was more to his character too, in that he wasn't actually an FBI, or they were some division, like an X-File division, because the way they approached a vampire, these guys weren't like your normal FBI guys who'd be surprised. Now, granted, it's a superhero world and there's other superheroes, so they don't really address it too much until the last 10 minutes. But still, I took his character as he's playing FBI, but he's not really. And that's why I didn't mind his character, because I liked him. I wanted to see more, though. I was hoping they'd go into the scar. I was hoping, besides, he was in the war and he saved his arm because of the blood thing. I'm like, yeah, but that scar doesn't look like a war scar. That looks like he got in a fight with like a werewolf or some shit.
And it's a deliberate decision, because they prominently they made the scar. They show it off a couple of times, so there's a story there. It's like Chekhov's neck scar. All right, so we've got Tracy back, agreed that delay gave them the time to second guess themselves. I feel like there was second guessing all over this production from top to bottom. So yeah, I think this is pretty much a good place to end it. I'm disappointed. I thought that I was going to come out of this conversation battered and bruised, but I think Morbius kind of brought us all together closer as friends. So thank you,
Morbius
Jared Leto.
is the friend that we made along the way.
Mm.
It is Morbius for a reason.
Oh,
Wow,
That's gonna be Jared Leto's new island name.
yeah,
Morbius.
Morbi dash us.
I just snorted.
a long line of cocaine.
Yeah,
No,
long line of an 8 ball of blood.
Hey, don't
Is it real?
say
Or is
no
it
till you
synthetic?
try it.
Is it real or is it synthetic? Yeah.
Oh,
Is it
well,
red or is it red or blue?
No, I
try the
literally
product
just
yourself,
snorted
man.
at the joke, but yes, I snort cocaine as well. So
It's-
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
No, I just like the idea of a movie called 8 Ball of Blood. That should be made.
8
It's like
ball
about
of
like
blood.
I'll make it.
Jason Blum is on the phone right now. He's
I'm-
begging you to
It's gonna be the Requiem sequel, and Jared Leto's
I'm
gonna be
writing
in
it right now in my head. I'm writing that movie right now in my head. 8 Ball of Blood. I like
Does
that. That's
Jared Leto come back with like a new like vampire robot arm after like he put too much heroin in it and like that, and he's got, I got this 8 ball of blood, man. Check it out.
you know, the arm's talking to him and says, "I want to be on television."
Yeah, I gotta be on television. All right.
I liked the first Venom. I found it entertaining. Okay, I did.
Me too.
All right.
I like both Venom movies.
I
and
like-
hate the character. I hate the character in the comics. Still.
I like both of them because of the way they were written, with the amount of humor and balance that they had in there. What was funny is watching the final battle between Morbius and whatever you want to call Milo. I swear they just reskinned the fight from Venom, the end of Venom, and they just literally, with where the slow motion was placed, the camera angles, everything, they literally just reskinned the Venom final battle.
I thought the same exact thing. I was like, I'm watching something incomprehensible yet so familiar. How is
The way
I
that he
blacked
just
out
cuts
at
to
one
black, he
point.
just
I
flies
just-
up the screen and cuts to black, and I'm like, wait, what? That's it? I'm sorry, Annie, go ahead.
No, I said at that point in the movie, I knew I was present. I knew I was coherent. And I was watching, but my eyes glazed over, and my jaw was kind of like ajar. I said like that for like 15 minutes as this fight was going on.
How did he take Milo out anyway? I couldn't even tell. How did he
I
take
wish
him
I
out?
knew.
I don't remember. Did
Oh,
they-
the
who
bats.
won?
The bats. He
But
had
was it
all
like
the.
a bat sword or something? Like what was
It was
I
it
don't-
was all bats eating him and biting him and such, and eating and biting him and eating biting. And then
It was
he
like
did
cannibalism.
he did like a bats blast. So instead of a force blast, he did like a bats blast where he
like
directed
a-
all the bats into him. And then Matt Smith, he got smashed in the concrete really badly. And while he's trying to heal, the bats kept at him. And then Morbius hit him with something.
Right, you're
Now, you
right.
see,
It was so obvious. I should have figured that out.
What-
This
when you
happened.
described
Like, I
it,
know
you
what
really
happened.
remembered.
But Mark, just the way that you were describing it doesn't
Yeah.
sound real.
It sounds way better than whatever I saw.
It
I'm like,
sounds like
that-
you're trying to remember what you saw by watching someone else react to the movie. And then
I like how the
relay
bats were
information
eating. It's
over
like
to
this.
us as soon as possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like I think halfway through the film, like you guys were talking about parts of the movie, and I'm like, oh, I remember that. I might have fallen asleep, and because like literally at one point in the movie, I'm like, oh, they're fighting now. Oh, okay. This is the end.
Here's a question. Has anyone seen a negative review headline that says Snorbius? Because I think that's a missed
Damn
opportunity.
it! I should have thought of that.
Oh,
okay.
Wait,
We're gonna edit right now.
Well, all right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to drag it on, but just one final comment is I like bookend movies to where they might reference something like a power or something or a scene, and then you come back later and they modify or bring it up. I think that's what they were trying to do here, because they show that really kind of useless scene. And I'm going to say it's useless in the beginning with Morbius getting the bats, because we address later that he has this tower full of bats and he's a researcher. You really don't need the cave scene at all, but it does if you go by a bookend theory where he's got his hand out and the bats come and they go around him, but they don't attack him or whatnot, and then later on when he's taking on the final guy, he's got his hand out and the bats come around him and they're his buddies. I think they were trying to go for that and they did it really loosely, but if you cut out that beginning scene, it's still, you don't need it.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if this movie needed a 3-hour cut, but maybe it's
2
like
hours.
2.5
4 hours
I mean,
and 9
Jesus
minutes
Christ.
in black and white.
No,
Just imagine audiences going to like a 2.5-hour movie starring Jared Leto, amongst all the.
Well, my favorite movie of all time
Hated
has
him.
Jared Leto in it, and it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's Blade Runner 2049. So
You know what? That is one of my favorite.
You're
movies of the last 10
excused. That's a
years.
great answer.
that is
That is a great
That
answer.
is a great answer.
The only thing is Jared Leto's the one weak part of that movie. Like him is like, oh, I
thought it
have
was
all the
perfect.
solutions to life. I speak like a robot, although I'm not one. You see the coincidence?
No, that wasn't actually filmed for the movie. That was just behind the scenes at his cult island.
Yeah.
And they just edited it in
He
seamlessly.
just smoked some peyote and then just
No.
started like rambling. Yeah.
not to bring it back to it, but it's just a prime example, and it just was coincidence we did the film this week. Blade, though, it was over 2 hours. And if you look at how that story played, you can do something mature, keep the movie moving, and do it in 2 hours. Morbius could have used not 2.5, but it could have used a 2-hour cut so you could keep those character moments in there. And I think people would have a better response to it.
Now,
Yeah, I mean,
with
it's 2 hours
Blade
and 9
being
minutes of movie.
God.
Huh?
I was gonna say, with Blade being established at the end of Eternals, do you think that this would have been a better way? Does Sony have the rights to take that?
Mm-mm.
No.
I know Marvel's doing Blade, and it's going to be PG, and it's going to be.
It's gonna be PG.
No, it's
I
not.
think, well, not PG,
Mike,
but it's not going to be
go to
R.
hell.
Like they're not doing R.
Go to hell.
I already am in hell. This is my bar. This is my hell.
Wow.
No.
All right,
There's no. Stop it. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Just quick sidebar. Could there be a Roadrunner cartoon where the Roadrunner goes on drugs and meets up with Wile E. Peyote? Anyway, this has been the Morbius live stream, everybody. I had to bring it to a stop, and that's the only way I know how. Is a terrible dad joke.
That's Jared
AKA a dad
Leto's
joke.
role as Wile E. Peyote.
Nice. I would watch that. I'd buy that for $1.
I-
All right. I thank you everybody for joining, for commenting. If you're watching this in the future, if you're watching it now, just give us a thumbs up and a like and all that good stuff. Follow all of my lovely and talented guests here on the panel. Their information is down below, or soon will be. We are Earth's Mightiest Critics. I'm going to get everybody's name back. Sorry, Tracy, we're going to make your comment go away. But thank you for joining us. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Annie Banks of Chuckload of Comics and Movie Web. We have Will Johnson of the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast, Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree, and Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck from the Spoiler Room and Special Mark Productions. This is like the 4th or 5th time that I've gone through that roster tonight, but I love it because I love all of you. And I love all of you out there in YouTube land. Thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back next week, 8:30 p.m. Central, talking about Moon Knight Episode 3. I probably will be drinking by that point. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Gonna have some moonshine. Oh, wait, hold on. Petty gets the last comment. Thank you, Ian, for such a good live. Well, I believe me, if it was just me talking to a camera, no, it would not be nearly as fantastic as it is. So thank you. But I owe everything to you guys. What?
Nothing.
Yes. Well, I do give good live. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great night. And what?
I was gonna say maybe not the best live I've ever had, but it could be the best.
I'm going to cut
Have you
this
been
off
known
now.
to fake your live?
Hey,
though?
this live, unlike
On
Morbius,
occasion, I have.
The female live is a myth.
Where even am I right now? Yikes.
Just make sure there's no blood.
Leave it to Mike to take it to that extra level.
Yeah, enjoy. I'm glad you like this conversation about a PG-13 vampire movie for kids. Have a good night, everyone.